as hygienists, we have, as a profession, we have struggled a lot, not just in our state, but nationally, with being recognized as a profession and being recognized for the education that we have. And I think that, we can be empathetic with the same pursuit of professional identity that dental assistants are wanting.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it just really comes down to education
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that, just because a dental assistant knows how to give an injection does not mean that your job is in jeopardy.
Right.
What it means is that now that frees you up to spend more time with your hygiene patient instead of having to hop back and forth between the hygiene and the doctor side to help the doctor out. Or it means that when the doctor comes in to do an exam, that you don't, maybe you don't have to go do a injection for the doctor. You actually get to go and take a break.
Yeah.
If somebody else is there to do the exam with the doctor, or it frees things up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but I would say, you really have to stress the education behind it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I don't think every DA would have the capability of giving anesthetic.
Right.
Hygienists don't either. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's very, very true. And just same thing with restorative, right? Not every hygienist has the desire or capability to create a beautiful restoration.
Mm-hmm.
But going through the process and learning how to
Mm-hmm.
do it allows you to educate the patient in a broader and more fulfilling educational process of what their needs are. And so even if a dental assistant doesn't necessarily want to give or is licensed to give the injection, they can truly understand what the whole process is,
Right.
and be able to prepare the patient and reduce the patient's anxiety about the process because they know about
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing.
Right. Right.
So, is there going to be a time when assistants are going to be able to give anesthetic? Or is there any states that allow that?
My understanding, there isn't anything yet. However, and April, you probably can speak to this better. My understanding is that in oral surgery assistants go through a specialized training for anesthesia and anesthesia monitoring, and I believe it's more general anesthesia, not local anesthesia.
Right.
Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct. And that's,
Yeah.
I know, I don't say it's exclusive to Oregon, but my home state's Michigan, and that wasn't the case. Here, yeah, you can take a course to be certified in helping with general anesthesia.
Yeah, but it's a course. You have to go through certification.
Yep.
And then there's continuing education requirements for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, my name is Tina Clarke, and I've been a hygienist here in the state of Oregon for about 20 years. I graduated from OHSU, Oregon Health Science University, back in 2001, and began my private practice clinical career pretty much right after. It was actually a lot of fun. I did full-time clinical practice for 6 years. And during that time, I started getting antsy, thinking there's more for me in this career, there's more that I can do. And because of my engagement and involvement with the professional association, the Oregon Dental Hygienists Association, I had met women throughout the state that knew of all these different opportunities. And one of them came to me and said, "Hey, I heard that Lane Community College is hiring a hygienist. They're needing somebody to run a distance site learning program." And through my lifetime, I've had people say, "Oh, Tina, you should become a teacher. You should become a teacher." And so I figured, hey, what the heck? I'm going to give it a try, just see what it's like. And so I applied for the position, having zero educational experience at all, and did the interview. And on my drive home, they called and said, "Hey, we want to hire you." And then that kind of began my educational career. So I did full-time clinical practice for 6 years, and then in 2007 became a full-time dental hygiene educator, teaching 5 students at this small little distance site, and at the same time was doing clinical practice at all together. And when I started teaching, I realized that while I was very seasoned in my thought process. I mean, 6 years in the field really isn't that long, but I thought I knew all of these things. But when I started to teach, I was like, oh gosh, I can't believe how much of this I forgot and how quickly it's all fallen out of my head. And so it was one of those moments of I need to brush back up on all of this stuff. And when I started doing that and I started talking with my other friends who had been doing hygiene for a while, they were saying, yes, I can't believe how much I've forgotten too. And that began my journey then into not just teaching hygiene students, but talking with my friends and peer groups and doing continuing education with them. And so over the years, I continued teaching dental hygiene students and then started doing more professional education to dental hygienists and using real life terms because I figured if I had forgotten what some of these things meant and what they were, that they probably had forgotten them too. And so began my process into that. And then in 2019, I decided that I wanted to make a program that was more accessible and easy for everybody to gain the information. And anesthesia had always been my baby. I've taught anesthesia for nearly 14 years and had a very high success rate doing it and coaching hygienists, licensed hygienists doing it. And so I said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and create a recorded course that people can sign up for and take at the leisure of their life, you know, in their bunny slippers and, you know, a glass of wine or a beer and just do it. And so that's kind of how I started Teacher Tina RDH and began this whole process of looking at what else is dental hygiene outside of just in the clinical setting or in the classroom setting.
Well, Tina, thanks for telling your story and how you got started in the dental industry. And sounds like, from what you're saying, that teaching and coaching is where your passion lies.
Oh,
Would you say that?
for sure. Absolutely. I think it's a rare gift that people have, and I'm not ashamed to say that I have that gift. And I think that when you identify your gift, you need to present it, and it's a disservice if you don't. So, yeah, I say yes, it is.
You may not know, but I've taught in the past for about 3 years, and considering, well, I am going to get back into it because that is where my passion lies as well. So I can relate to what you're saying. Giving fulfillment out of, getting the students to get that get it, and passing along the information that we're willing to share.
Yeah, it really is. There's something about when you can take something that can be complicated and break it down for somebody else to be able to go, oh, okay, I get it. And then they're able to then pass that along for their better patient care experience. Or even if it's, that they're able to share what they learned to another classmate, it's just there is that fulfillment. And when you can create an impact like that, when you can create that moment for somebody else where they get it, you get to see the ripple effect extend out. And when you get to see them in their practice and incorporating all those hints and tips and tricks that you taught them and hear their stories about how much patients enjoy working with them, then you can go, yeah, see, it's a process, it's a legacy, and it is very fulfilling.
All right. Well, you guys are boring me with your talk about all this dental stuff, so I'm just gonna sit back here and crack a beer. Anybody want to have a beer with me?
Sounds good.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
What are you drinking, April?
Well, I'm going to warn people. This is our Multnomah County Stout. It's barrel aged.
Whoa.
However, it's about a 14%. It's
Woo!
the shareable beer for sure.
14? That's like a straight shot of whiskey.
Yeah, so, oh wait, I could be wrong. Let me look. I think it's close to 14.
Is that one that you would serve in a short glass because it's so strong?
Yes. Yeah, and people could easily get pretty, well, it's noon, it's already past noon, but
That's okay to say.
And I got a little bit on my laptop here because, excited to open it. But no, I'll take a few sips because it could hit pretty quickly.
So what
So,
do you
so
think?
if you're slurring your words, it's not because you're numb, it's because you're
Oh,
beer, right?
you beat me to it. Yes. Hmm.
Totally. So what are you having, Tina?
So I am not as bold or brave as you, April. I am kind of a wuss when it comes to beer. So I go for the very light, more of a wheat. So I've got a Blue Moon Belgian white right here. And for me to have a beer, it has to be very, very cold and more fruity and very low IBUs. And I might get through a whole beer. So unless like, unless it's a hot summer day and there's country music playing, that's kind of
Yeah,
yeah, there's something about that, right? When it's a hot summer day and country music, it just seems like that's what you should
it
have.
goes together, and you're on the boat. Yeah,
Right.
I'm the same way. So I love IPAs and I do like beer, but I'm a lightweight as well, and having a strong beer, which I know April doesn't normally drink that strong of a stuff, but I found one that is called Wowza, and it's Deschutes, which I think is in Bend, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
in Bend. So it's called Wowza, and it's a low calorie, so it's 100 calories, which is great, and it's only 4% and 4 carbs. So it actually tastes good. So I still get the taste of the IPA, but it's lighter because I don't like Coors Light unless I'm having it for breakfast with some red sauce, or else then it's just like water. So I found this
Put on
one,
your
and I was gonna
cereal.
ask April if you have anything like this that's comparable that I could get.
It's in the works. Low,
Great.
what do we call
You're
it?
the sponsor.
Non-alcohol. You can't. What's that?
I said for free since you're the sponsor, right?
That's right. Um, you can't completely make a beer alcohol free, but yeah, we're working on it.
Oh, I don't want it alcohol free. I'm just talking
Well,
lighter, but still have the IPA
low alcohol.
flavor,
Yeah.
kind of like a skinny latte.
Yes. Yeah. Or what do you call it? Old fashioned, low calorie.
Yeah. Yeah. Where
Yeah.
you just it's the soda and a splash of something else.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
A keto version.
There
We need
you
a
go.
keto beer.
Yes, you took the words out of my mouth.
There you go. That could be the name for it, right? Your
Yes.
Yeah, I think you guys should have a special brew for the
key
dental
tail.
hygienist, and then we could
This is
give it
how
to our
ideas
guests.
get started.
I know, too many ideas.
So
Yeah,
does
so this is great. I'm glad to crack a beer with you guys. It's been a little while, and
Yeah.
we can bring some
You
fun
can't.
back into dentistry.
well, thanks for inviting me along to have one with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Welcome. So back on the topic of anesthesia and assistance, something that I always thought of is why don't we work to the top of our license? And like you were saying, if an assistant can do anesthesia or restorations, or a hygienist could do anesthesia and restorations, doctor do that. Not that I want to give anesthesia for the doctor's patients all the time at all, but they could be doing something bigger and better, more to the top of their license.
Mm-hmm.
They could be doing more implants, surgeries, bridges, root canals, anything that we definitely cannot do. And then we could do the easier things that we can do that's in our scope of practice. So I don't know how that would look, but to me, it doesn't make sense that we'd have like the hygienist taking out the garbage or even the assistants taking out the garbage. We should all work to the top of our license and everybody can be brought up and they would be given full
Yeah.
patient care.
Right. So if everybody is working and fulfilling at the top of their job duties, their job descriptions, then that will allow for higher production and higher job satisfaction as
Right.
well because you're getting to use the knowledge that you have. And again, we as professionals can sometimes feel like our toes are going to get stepped on, but if you reshift the thought process and say, okay, nobody's going to be coming in and taking this from me, so to speak. They're freeing me up to allow me to be able to spend more time with the patient here in my chair and instead of having to run up and down the hall doing that. Now, there are a lot of hygienists that love it. That's what their bread and butter is, providing anesthesia for the doctors all the time. And that probably won't go away. And it's there's still states that are where hygienists are trying to even get anesthesia. So I think it's a valuable discussion to have, and it's a valuable thought to review, and to be open to that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of that is egos, and just even
Yeah.
with a dentist not wanting us to do certain things are kind of, and to me that doesn't make sense either because we're there to help them. It's everybody's patient. We're there to do better for the patient. And so, and the same with hygienists and assistants. Everybody is there to work together. And assistants, they could do so much more than they're allowed to do as well. And so we're really kind of doing everybody a disservice by not, upping everybody's game.
Right. And, and another thing I think that we all need to be aware of in regards to, I was talking with a hygienist who is a dental assisting instructor. She's over on the East Coast. And she was even saying, she's like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot the reason why we would massage the anesthetic in when we're doing a mental incisive injection. And she's like, now I can remind my assisting students that even though they aren't the one giving the injection, there are things that they can do post injection to follow up with that. And when everybody on the dental team understands the processes, then they'll be able to figure out where they can fit into the role. So it may not be like they're the ones actually giving the injection, but they're going to be the ones that are helping to prepare the injection and to do all the post uh, operative, I guess would be the right term for it, after the injection.
Right. Even putting the topical on because I'm sure they see it enough. They see the doctor do it all the time. They could probably do it themselves without any training, honestly. But to even know exactly where to put the topical, to know the palpate and where to place it would be a big help, even for that.
Yeah. There's the one of the dental assistants that I work at the office, one of the offices that I'm at right now. She follows me on like Facebook, and she was like, Tina, I was watching this one injection you were doing. I can't remember what it was, and she was describing it to me, and I was like, oh, that's the Gal Gates. And she goes, okay, so now I know. She's like, so the doctor's actually giving that injection and not this one. So I really am not putting the topical in the right spot for him because she had been putting it lower, but she was noticing that he kept inserting higher. And so she was like, oh, now I know. So Cindy, that's a perfect point.
Right. And then knowing that the patient's eye is going to be numb, knowing exactly what nerves are going to be numb so they can tell the patient if the patient says, is that normal? And they tell the patient, yes,
Right.
which really they're thinking probably not, but it is, so they can know exactly what's going to, we're going to be numb.
Right. And I think that's important for everybody, not just dental assistants, but even hygienists.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are in a state that doesn't, where hygienists can't give anesthetic, it's still important to understand the whole neural pathways and what's affected and how to coach and mentor that patient through the process. Because oftentimes, I think we can all agree that the doctor is not going to be the first person to address it. They probably will address it, but probably won't be the first person to address it.
Right. Right. So that patients communicate more with the auxiliary team.
Right.
Auxiliary. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I love that with doing the anesthetic. Like, I would love to take your course, honestly, because I love giving anesthetic. And I don't, when you're in school, you learn all these things, but then you get out to the real world, as you know, it's a little bit different. And sometimes you kind of fake it, or you do your best, or you make it your own ways, and it works great. But knowing, even going back and knowing these things that you forget because you don't do them all the time, like the Gal Gates
Right.
and things like that too, would be great for a refresher course.
Right, for
Okay.
sure. Or if you're like,
Thanks,
why
Jane.
isn't this why isn't this patient getting numb? And you're like, oh wait, that's right. I remember learning about, the Gal Gates or the Vozeroziaconosis, or oh, that mylohyoid nerve, sometimes it comes up and we'll get that mandibular first molar. I don't know why I said premolar, but that mandibular first molar, like kind of having those things remind you. Like you learn those when you're in school, but with anything, if you don't use it, I don't want to say you lose it because it's always back there, but it becomes very muted.
Or you're not confident.
Right.
Do you teach different techniques and also new products that might be on the market, like Orchix or anything like that, or what's all involved
Uh,
in the course?
yes. So the way that the course is set up is you can buy it as a bundle, and the part one is all about maxillary injections, and I go through and review all of the anatomy, like the bones, nerves, and vessels that you would need to be aware of for the injections, and then I deep dive into each injection itself, showing pictures, talking about angulations, and then I have for almost every single injection a video that accompanies it where I'm cueing it along and posting and commenting about some of those reminders. And then so that's for there's maxillary mandibular injections are just like that. And it is pretty much all of the common injections. I go through the ASA, MSA, PSA, the infraorbital, the three palatal injections, nasopalatine, greater palatine, and then the AMSA, which a lot of people, depending upon when they learned, didn't learn it because it's really only been around in the educational system for about 10 years. And there's some oral surgeons that don't know it either. I'm going to tell you this. I know I'm totally squirreling right now, but several years ago, Salem was the host of Mission of Mercy. And so my hygiene students were able to provide the anesthesia for all of the oral surgery patients, which was a phenomenal experience. And when I was talking with the head oral surgeons that were overseeing that, because they're the ones, we're getting the patients numb for them, was talking to him about that injection. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He had never heard of that injection before. So it was actually really fun to teach him about that injection and have him kind of go, oh wow, this is cool, and being able to do that. So
That it's
yes,
AMSA.
AMSA,
Okay, so there's
anterior middle
oh,
superior
there's
alveolar.
ASA and then the MSA, right? Or
Yeah,
PSA. Okay, so
yeah.
yeah,
So
I graduated over 10 years ago. But I don't, yeah, so that might have been right afterwards.
yeah, so you have your PSA, which takes care of the molars, and then your MSA, which is like the premolars, and then the ASA, which is your anterior teeth, but that's all on the facial. It takes care of the facial stuff. But the cool thing about the AMSA, which is a palatal injection, that one is a palatal approach, but it takes care of the palatal tissue plus the premolars and the anterior teeth and the facial gingiva, but
Wow.
it doesn't impact the lip,
Wow. Yeah.
which is really cool for aesthetic dentistry. If you have a patient that needs scaling and root planing and they have to go to a meeting afterwards and they still want to be able to have lip function, or they have lunch, they can still have that.
Wow. I'd never heard of it. So doctors can take your course in front office assistants. Anybody's able to take your course. Doesn't mean they
And
can do anesthetic, but the practice might want to consider having the whole team to educate themselves.
everybody can take the course, and I try to use very simple, plain terminology. I had one person submit a course review and said it read like a children's book, easy to listen to, and I can do it over and over and over again. And at first I was like, oh, what? I was kind of offended at first, but then I realized, no, that's a compliment because it made it so that way she was able to hear the information and retain it. So,
Yes.
I think that's pretty awesome.
Sometimes just those big fancy words are what scare us, or we don't
Right.
think we know what we're talking about because we don't know, there's so many terminology. And then when you talk to your patients, trying to break that terminology into layman's terms, it's hard to do. So that's great that you're able to do that, and you have to when you're teaching.
Oh, you definitely have to, and I think that I know I'm one of those people where when I'm in a course and somebody's using all of this dental terminology, I get lost in feeling bad about myself for going, I know I learned this, but I don't remember what it is, and kind of beating myself up for not being able to recall that information right away instead of listening for what I'm actually supposed to be learning for. And my hope is to be able to sidestep that and be able to have people go, okay, this is this is what I'm actually learning, and not having to worry about all of the
Yes,
big major technical terms.
I love it.
I do use them, but I also then follow up with the an analogy or a easy to process word to go along with it. Yeah, and then the third part of the course is all about anesthetic dosaging, the types of anesthetics, complications that might happen. How do we change our anesthetic delivery for our elderly patients, or for our pregnant patients, or for our kiddos? So those types of things.
And what about the wand? Do you teach anything on that, or is that
I don't specifically. I mention it. I talk about it, but I don't like dive deep into that. I just say, oh, there's the wand that you can use, and because there's so many different manufacturers out there
right?
that have their own kind of different tweaks to things. So
Right, right. And you can't include everything. That would be a whole different course on how to use.
yeah, maybe you gave me another idea,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would love that too.
huh?
So Tina, where would we find your course?
My website is teachertinardh.com. So that's pretty easy. Teacher Tina, Tina RDH.com.
I'm not a preschooler.
Yeah. But that is on there. There's a link that goes to my courses, and that'll take you to the learning platform because I have to have a learning platform, and you can take the course, and you do get a certificate of completion that is time stamped with how many hours you were in that course as well.
Does it include CE credits at all?
Right. So each state has their own requirements for CE and what counts as CE. So I always encourage all the participants to look at what their state requirements are. However, because of the beautiful events of 2020 and the need for virtual courses has risen, a lot of states have put in information about a continuing education course that is online counts if there's interaction with the instructor. And I have set everything up so that way you can have interaction with me. It may not be immediate, like within 5 minutes, but anytime you have a question or a comment or want follow up, I have processes in place where you have a discussion board in the course and you get a response back within, for sure, 24 hours, but it's usually closer to 12.
Now, do you have a limit on your class size?
No, no limit on the class size. It is 100% independent, so you can log in and take it. You can choose to come in and take it at 6 a.m. and pause it and come back the next day at 6 p.m. You have a 1 year access to the course, so even after you've completed the course, you can still go back and review the information. And anybody that signs up for the course, if there's new information that's come my way since I have recorded it, I put that up there, and then I send all of the students saying, here's some new updates for your information.
Okay, so you get a year's worth of updates as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah. And I think it's reasonably priced too. So,
do you want to tell us the price?
Well, sure. Yeah. Right now, as of the recording of today, it's $75 for all three courses, and it's about 4.5 hours worth of, or 4 hours of continuing education.
That is a great price for sure.
Yeah.
What a great benefit.
I think so. I think so. And I have other courses on there too, like a head and neck anatomy course that's geared towards understanding head and neck anatomy and how it relates to the intra and extra oral examination, which is another thing I think dental assistants should be highly educated in and should be encouraged to do on a regular basis.
Do you guys learn that in school, April? A lot of head and neck anatomy.
Well, my coursework, we had a whole semester on it. And in my teachings, we maybe work on it for like a week. In my personal opinion, I think it should be at least the semester like I took. It was pretty in depth, and we got taught by an oral surgeon.
There's a lot of information. I thought it was going to be really easy for some reason. I was like, oh, it's head and neck. Like,
yeah,
it was so much to learn. So much.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Remember the skulls? We had the skulls out, and
yes, coloring, all those. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if only our patients were really that easy to be color coded like that, right? When they walk in.
Or had zippers on their cheeks. So
right, exactly. You're like, excuse me.
We're all wired the same, but yet we're not. So there's always that one. You don't know that until you find out.
Excuse me, I just need to take a look for your note here.
Yeah. Are you finding that after they graduate and looking for the new job that they need some mentoring, even if they're in their first job?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There is it's scary, right? I don't think it really matters where you're at in your career, but it is very scary going from the safety of your learning environment out into the kind of big world of getting paid for what you're doing. So on a regular basis, I'll get text messages like at 11 o'clock at night from students or from friends that are going, Tina, do you have any advice on ... And it's sad. I think it's sad, but it's good at the same time that school systems don't have enough time to incorporate that into their learning process. Like they kind of start on it a little bit, but to be able to have a resource, a trusted resource from somebody that's been out in the field for a while, who has done it for a while, to say, hey, can you be a sounding board, or how can I be the top candidate for this position? What would be the best way to present myself for this type of a thing. And to have somebody that will tell you that it's okay, your anxiety is real and it's okay, but this is how we work through it and how you go through the process.
So, April and I have been gathering funny stories from dental professionals about what either happened to you or patients or anybody in the dental practice. And so, do you have a good story you can share with us, Tina?
Yeah, this is something I actually share with any of my students when they feel like they're probably have like really messed up or anything like that, or that a day can't get any worse. But when I was pregnant with my son, I was, you know, gigantic. Think of it, belly straight out to, all the way out. Like I felt like I was 5 feet wide instead of 5 feet tall. So, but I'm working along and uh, instrumenting, and all of a sudden I hear this little noise. It goes, "Burr," and I just kind of went, "Oh, goodness gracious!" and tried to play it off that my chair squeaked when I actually farted. And then all of a sudden, wearing my mask, I could smell it through my mask. And I just kept going along. And I'm like, we're just going to do a little rinse and section. And it was stone cold quiet in there for the rest of
Nasty.
the appointment. Oh, yeah, and a little smelly too. But I was so mortified. But I mean, I had zero control over my body because I'm pregnant, and my little guy, he was like tumble sauces in there, and you know, I figure if if you can survive farting by somebody's nose accidentally, like you can survive anything.
Right.
Like it's gonna be okay.
Did that patient ever come back?
I really blocked it.
Or did you put them in their hygienist schedule? You're like, ah.
Yeah,
Got 'em
but
over
yeah, I just it was I was so mortified through that moment. I can't even remember who the patient was. I just remember like the temperature in the room went up 20,000 degrees, and I was bright red and just was like, I just pretend that nothing happened. And even though, I mean, it was like, it felt like it was searing my nostrils, the scent. So I just can't imagine that
and
poor,
you even had your mask on, and oh my gosh.
right?
That's
Isn't
where you
that
turn the
horrible?
suction on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness now for the room HEPA filters that we have in place, right?
Yes.
But 18 years ago, that wasn't there.
That is a good story.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Everybody likes a good, relatable story.
Good
Right.
part
Nothing,
story.
nothing like a fart story.
Right.
Really lighten things up.
Yeah.
For sure.
This might be all afternoon. I'm telling you, I would be totally blitzed.
Let me see. Shake it. Let's see how much beer you have left in there.
Oh,
Looks empty to
oh,
me.
it's
Oh,
Are you laying on the floor?
no.
Why are you laying on the
I
floor?
just spilled some on my arm.
Uh-huh.
I'm taking very small sips. I have a reputation of cold.
Thank you, Teacher Tina, for being our guest on episode 18 of the Dental Elements podcast. For more information about Tina's course, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, go to her website, teachertinardh.com. And don't forget, all of you newer grads out there, to find us on rooteyouon.com.
Take me to the place where